Tashidale, everyone, to all my Dharma sisters and brothers around the world. We will start in a few minutes. We let people calm, make themselves comfortable. So as you can see, you will have a different selection of translation. So I'm going to explain slowly and clearly as possible. Okay. Okay, so we will start with the Refuge Prayer, and then the Bodhicitta, the Four Endless Thoughts, and the dedication, and then the mandala, and then we start the session. Yeah. So I hope everybody has the text, since from the last time we did. And I'm very happy to be with all of you again. It's been a while that I was not on the online engagement, because I was in Vancouver teaching a Niguma yoga, you know, for people for 6 days of retreat. So it was very meaningful for me as well as for them. Yeah. Because I think it's very important for people to understand the balance between the body and the mind, and also the connection as well. Because many people, when they think about Buddhism, either they think about some sort of silence, or either they think about intellectual debate, intellectual studies, intellectual approach. All these are meaningful, but I think the most important is that, is that understanding our body, understanding the mind, gradually, progressively. I think that's quite important. Because, we put our perspective into a very limited understanding. We say, are you happy? Are you sad? Are you excited? Or you're not excited? Are you under pressure? Or you feel a sense of isolation? So we put the idea of life very much into 2 categories in our life. And also when we come to Buddhism, we also approach with that kind of a mental approach. And then that's something we need to improve over the time. Because the yoga, when you do yoga, your mind is focused into the breath, and then you're balancing the body, and then having this continuous awareness. There's a saying that if you have the control and the awareness of the air, you have the awareness of the mind. When you don't have the control or the awareness of the air, you do not have the awareness of the mind. And it's something that we need to be grateful of, because we have all the tools. We don't need a miracle method. We have all the practical tools to experience oneself, to engage in all this different practice. And I think we are very fortunate to be as a human being, to meet with the Dharma, to be able to experience just by some sort of a dedication and some sort of a very simple method. So that's it. I think we are waiting for the Italian translator. There's a Cantonese and there's Mandarin translator. There's a Portuguese and German, and I think we are waiting. And then there's a Spanish. Also over there. I think we are waiting for the French and then the French and the Italian. Yeah. So we wait for a few minutes until they solve the technical challenges. Okay. Seems like there won't be a French translator due to some small technical difficulties, but I'm sure the Italian translator will be there. And then I think I will go ahead with the teaching, and then later on, in your own WhatsApp group, you can ask your Lama, your Italian Lama Renato, to translate and to individually guide and help. Okay, so that's it. So we start with the Refuge, Buddha Prayer, Dharma, Sangha, and the mandala. O Sanjin Jodam Zogi Chonam La Chanjum Pando Dani Japsuchi, Dagi Jensun Gibe Sonam Gi, Rola Benji Sanjin Ruban Show, Sanjin Jodam Zogi Chonam La Chanjum Pando Dani Japsuchi, Dagi Jensun Gibe Sonam Gi, Rola Benji Sanjin Ruban Show, Sanjin Jodam Zogi Chonam La Chanjum Pando Dani Japsuchi, Dagi Jensun Gibe Sonam Gi, Rola Benji Sanjin Ruban Show. Sanjin Jodam Zogi Chonam La Chanjum Pando Dani Japsuchi, Dagi Jensun Gibe Sonam Gi, Rola Benji Sanjin Ruban Show. Simje Damje Dewa Nan Dewe Junan, the Branch Donga Dan Donga Ginjunan, Rawan Donga Meben Dewa Tamba Dam Rawan Jusin, Yerin Chanan Yidandra. Tanyum Chimbola Neberan Junji, Simje Damje Dewa Dan Dewe Junan, the Branch Donga Dan Donga Ginjunan, Rawan Jusin, Donga Meben Dewa Tamba Dam Rawan Jusin. Yerin Chanan Yidandra, Tanyum Chimbola Neberan Junji, Simje Damje Dewa Dan Dewe Junan, the Branch Donga Dan Donga Ginjunan, Rawan Jusin. Dunga meben dewa damba la mendewa juje nyeren chadan yedan drebe tanyum jembo la neburan juje chanze wadan shujin sha wadan jesu yeran guijin sowa ye gewa chonzen dagi jesamba tamzen dagi chanchu chenbo ngo nisa shinpe shi zhongxin meto undama rirab nishe nyeden jembante sanje shendo meden bowa ye Drogo namda xin lan jue paran shu panen zawe lama rinpoche dagin chiguro pemen ten shu la Kajin chenpe gwane jizun de goson to gengon Zandu su ndu ju shangda wanjin pe man zhong shawa riba me de rawa la Chongbo mo ju shangam che zin su za ju la men shawa changze de chu le jia su shingi lam de so. So for the Cantonese and Chinese, I think you have to click on the logo of the interpretation, and then you will find your own selection of language, whether it's Portuguese or German or Spanish or Cantonese or Mandarin. You can find in this interpretation categories. So you will have a choice over there. If you just simply wait, you will not get anything. So you have to click on the interpretation, and then you can get the selection of your own language. Okay, so I hope maybe if there's some questions that is arising, the same thing, whether which translator is there, you can just simply help each other, so I don't have to repeat again. So okay. So the title is this one, and Jewe Tembala Jubil Rimba Kibusum Gimenga. So the last time I have explained to you, but I will explain to our newcomers just briefly. And Jawe Temple and Jube, it means the individuals who are entering into the path of Dharma, Dharma, and those and then it's divided into three categories. Those who have a basic categories of qualities of mind, and the mid qualities, and the profound qualities. So those who can approach the different method based on their own capacity. So their capacity is based on three different method. So. Hello, Namala Tashideli. Okay, so.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Sorry for all the delays and problems.
No problem. I think you have to change the channel of your audio because I can hear you at the
Channel of the audio. Oh, sorry for that.
No problem. Thank you for coming. Is it okay? Okay. So, Jawe Temple and Jube means those individuals who are entering into the path of the Buddha Dharma, and it's divided into three categories, and three categories are, the one who has ordinary qualities, a limited understanding, the one who has a little bit broader understanding or capacity, and the third is more profound and limited capacity. So the teachings for three different individuals of categories. Let's put it like this. Menga means instruction, T written instruction. Duzinyinku means the essence of the nectar. That's the name. And so the reason why I choose this one, including the Niguma is more to do with the symbolic, teachings, and this is the more practical method. And the reason why I choose this text is because you can use this as an analytical meditation session. Like an example, you make a refuge prayer, just like we did. You make a mandala prayer, you make a bodhicitta prayer, and then at the same time, you think about one method, two method, three method, and you repeat that. You keep it in the cycle again and again for 10, 15 minutes. And then you make a dedication. And so you don't have to finish all the different instruction. You can finish, like when I say the first cycle, that means if you can use that for one session. And you can, when I say 3 cycle, 4 cycle, 5 cycle, so you can use 5 cycle, means 5 different methods, 5 different analytical meditation method, and that you have to analyze. You can use 5 of them in one session. You can do 2. You can use 2 of them. You can use 1. So it's totally up to you. So, so that's that. So I think the last time where I have reached was I am assuming the 5 negative faults. Did I explain that last time? Yeah, 5 negative faults. So 5 negative faults are, this is a major explanation. So then from this, then on, then it goes more into a progressive explanation. So the reason why we are making a prayer to the Buddha is that we want to have a more deeper understanding to oneself. And we have a 5 negative faults. Negative, when you say negative, we should not see it as something bad, something terrible, but rather we should see the negativity as a part of an obstacle, an actual logical obstacle that can be removed based on your analytical capacity and understanding. And that should be our mental strength, and that should be our mental approach and the mental attitude. because when we are in Buddhism, when we are in the Buddhist society, we often think as an obstacle something that is simply have to be prayed and by the protector and the deities can be solved by them. So when we think about obstacles, we automatically think like that. And then when we think about something negative, we automatically think negative in a sense, something bad, something sad, something heartbroken, something miserable. But in the spiritual understanding, the negative not really necessarily means miserable and sad. The negativity in the Buddhist and the spiritual sense is basically absent from the clarity. Absent from the clarity of a genuine solution. So that is the meaning of negative. So you should not have a lot of imagination, but rather clear understanding. What does it mean by the negative fault? So the 5 facts of the negative faults are fixation in one's life, in your life. Not denial to the existence of the karma. And thinking that there is a joy and happiness in the samsara, or at least trying to justify, let's put it like this. Self-importance, primarily self-importance and leading to other things. And then the fixated mind to self, fixated mind to external. So my explanation to this is that, it says attachment to this very life, denial to the karmic existence, and trying to find some kind of a justification that there's still some sort of a middle ground solution. Even the Buddha said there's no solution, like trying to be diplomatic, against the Buddha's teaching. Let's put it like this, clear and simple. So, and that's something we have to understand. So these are the these are the 3, and then the other one is the self-importance, and the 5th is the fixation. So these are the things that we need to, accept and overcome. But here is where it goes wrong, because many of the traditional teachings, when we think about it, we see it as a black and white, something like negative, something positive. But in the reality, in order to make an actual progress, all this renunciation of these negative qualities takes time. Nobody becomes renounced instantly. You can renounce intellectually, but really to renounce the fixation to oneself, takes time. Like a Milarepa. He abandoned all the ordinary worldly life, but yet there is still much to observe and to overcome. So, and that is the example. So you cannot just simply renounce and say, look at me, I renounce everything. So now that is supposed to make me happy. It doesn't. So the renunciation is a progress, as well as a spiritual awakening or the realization. The deep realization of the mind is also a progress over the time. So you should not think it as a something like you can manage one and then finish one and then never to look back again. It doesn't work like that. We have to analyze the meaning of the renunciation again and again. We have to convince ourselves. We have to convince ourselves genuinely, not based on force, not based on the cultural mentality, not based on the religious way of, like a forceful way of thinking, but rather genuinely examining the reality of the suffering the existence of the suffering, and the very existence of the attachment, and the very essence of the attachment, examining one, from the broader one all the way to the subtle one, from the intellectual capacity. And then as you continue to practice, and then the very subtle level of the self-fixation tend to be overcome based on your dharmic dedication. And so therefore, just by saying that I understand the 5 things is not enough. Long story short. Understanding is one thing, and having a genuine progress is another. So there are the 5 positive things. There's the 5 negative fault and the 5 positive fault. 5 positive. And then, like an example, Chompo Nanjo said in the context, in this teaching, it says seeing the meaning of life, not just this life as important, but also the next life as important as well. And that is the first stage of renunciation. But you should not make a misunderstanding between the worldly practitioners. Like an example, there's so many worldly practitioners who practice generosity, who practice kindness, who practice some sort of a meditation, but not necessarily the purpose of looking at Buddhahood, more to do with to be born in heaven. So that these are the worldly wishes. The worldly wishes are not just, I want to have a long life, or I want to have a fortunate life, less sick, more good luck, more magnetizing or charismatic. These are not just the worldly wishes, but also if you say, I want to uphold the discipline, and I want to uphold the quality of kindness, and I want to practice a little bit of meditation, and then have a little bit of generosity, so that I could cultivate enough positivities or brings enough positivities in terms of accumulation, so that I can live in heaven. So you can consider that as the next life, but that is not same as what we are trying to say here. In this Buddhist context, what we are trying to say is that next life, in a sense that we want to be in touch with the Dharma at all times, and ultimately want to reach the state of enlightenment, right? So that's the distinction between the ordinary worldly wishes and dedication and us, because if you just listen to it without any understanding, it sounds similar. Next life I want to be better, next life I want to have a better one, this life, yes, but the next life is also important. So if you don't understand fully, it can be misunderstood. Like an example, Chompo Nanjo, when he came to India to see Dorje Dempa, Chompo Nanjo said to Dorje Dempa, I am here and desperately want to seek your attention and want to learn Dharma, because I'm not afraid of this death. I am afraid of my next life. So, and then this is, and that's how he started his spiritual journey. And he started in his 50s, in his late 50s, he became Buddhist. He was a Tibetan, and he became a Buddhist in his late 50s. He was not brought up in the monastery in the 20s or teenager or when he was a child. He became a Buddhist in his late 50s. And yet he became a great master, because he dedicated, practice, retreat, and so on. So that's it. And many of us, we may find the argument that I don't believe in next life. We say, I do not believe in next life. Or there's some group of people who get carried away saying that, oh, I really believe in next life, I believe in really next life, but then again, they don't have any they don't have any sort of awareness of the action of their body and the speech and the mind, so that also doesn't help anything, so either way, like an example, if you have the argument that I do not believe in next life, then if you do not believe in next life, then you should not dream at all. But that is impossible. You will always dream, whether you like it, whether you don't like it. And then, so that's how the next life continues. The idea of the next life is much more than how you look and how you appear. It's a soul that continues, the consciousness that continues. Previous Kalarang, which is in his teaching, he said that when you are in a state of dreaming, and when you are dreaming in that very moment of that experience, in that very moment, you believe that everything that you're witnessing is actually real, absolutely real. And then the moment you awaken, you realize it was a dream. So the idea of that we have in our mind, this is real, we need to overcome that over the time, slowly, and really understand over the time what is the definition of the reality really, and what is the meaning of impermanence, what is the definition of reality, and then having some sort of awareness in mind, developing over the time is very much important. Okay, so going to the second one, seeing the samsara as a samsara, seeing the suffering as a suffering, instead of justification. Instead of having a self-importance, having an importance of others as well, a little bit of openness, open mindset, let's put it and then understanding the relative truth and the ultimate truth as well. And so these are the 5 things, the 5 positivity. So now talking about the obstacles, to practice Dharma, there's always obstacles. So what are the definition of obstacles? Externally, there can be obstacles from men and spirits. And then the second obstacle can be caused from the unbalance of our elements of our body. And then the third obstacle, the third obstacle is having so many projection of thought that is the opposite of the Dharma view. So these are the 3 different kind of obstacles. So I think I have to explain a little bit here. The external obstacles that is caused by men and spirit. I think nowadays, with so much distraction, I don't think the spirits have any energy or strength to disturb us anymore, because our mind is fully concentrated into who is posting what, and what are the better pictures, how can I update my profile picture, and which angle, what background, we get so distracted with so many things. I don't think even the spirit is knocking on our head. I don't think we will ever interrupted by them anymore, I would say. But definitely we face a lot of obstacles with other human beings, with some sort of discomfort, not necessarily like in the 15th century, where people literally, have an argument, and yeah. So nowadays there's some sort of, it's not a perfect society, but at least there's some sort of a boundary of the legal structure. At least there's a corruption, but at least there's some sort of boundary, some sort of line, better established than 1,000 years ago, at least in some sort of, some level. So I think that's that. And then what are Jungwa Lutu Binasa? And then, many of us, the third is that, we say that we are Buddhist practitioner, but yet we do not look after health seriously as we should. Because being Buddhist means awareness of what we put inside our mouth before what we put into our mind, so like an example, Taranatha, in this very teaching, I know it's going to come a little bit later, but in his very teaching, he said, the first awareness to the spiritual awakening starts from awareness of what we consume. So when you have the awareness of what you consume, and then that has a, that brings some sort of balance. When you bring a balance of what you consume, you bring the balance to the body. When you bring the balance to the body, you create some sort of a space between your mind and the body to see more widely, more wider perspective. As you create that reality of little bit space, and then a desire to have some sort of a solitude tend to come. The meaning of solitude tend to come. You see, some people, who have gone through so much in life, who got married, who fought in war, and then who did so many things in their life. At the end of their life, they want to be alone. Of course, they like to be with people, but they like to be alone. And I don't think that we have to wait that long, because we are Buddhist practitioner, we don't have to wait until that moment comes. So many people, people who work very hard, have a lot of grandchildren, a lot of job, a lot of money, lack of money, whatever the social status may be. There's some point in their life, they just want to be alone a little bit, But unfortunately, that is a little bit too late. So us, as a practitioner, we have to realize that a little bit quicker. So once we have that, the importance of the solitude mindset, once we have that, and then the reality and the joy to practice Dharma, whatever the tradition may be, whether it's a Nyingma or Saja or Kaji or Giluk or Chonam or Shampa, it doesn't matter. The most important is that when you develop this some sort of solitude mindset, and then the solitude reality tend to develop, and then the joy to practice Dharma tend to be more and more closer to your heart. So that's how it works. So it doesn't work other way around. So many people, they think that the Dharma is like a quick painkiller. Like you have a problem and then I want to have a quick, ease the pain right away. And it doesn't function like that. Even it does, it doesn't last. Because Dharma is to have some solid foundation in one's own mind. So going back. So therefore, to balance, to bring the, to bring a balance in the body and the health-wise is very important. And then, and then the third obstacle is the ordinary, projection of thoughts that are opposite of the Dharma practice, the opposite of the spiritual progress and the growth. And this can be explained in a wide range, because, like an example, I am next to my Rinpoche, I am next to my Lama, so I am more important, So that is also an obstacle. You see, you look at the Milarepa and the, Milarepa being as a student, and the Chumpunanjo's student, his name is Mokchopa. The common ground they have is that they always receive a teaching, desperately, receive empowerment, instruction, desperately, joyfully. But they were the students who were not part of the inner circle, but rather something a little bit more distant. And they have no political agenda in their mind. Oh, I want to be the more important student. I want to be the more important figure. I want to appear more special. They have none of that. And both of them, the common ground is that they receive all the teachings, what there needs to be received, and then they practice for the rest of their life. And that's what Milarepa did. Because Marpa Lotawa, even though he is an incredible master, his son, mismanaged a little bit at the end of his life, after Marpa passed away. The son a little bit mismanaged little things. And just like that, Milarepa witnessed that, was disappointed, and left. But he received all the teachings that needs to be received. He received all the empowerment and transmission and teaching, and he became the first Mahasiddha. And then you look at the Mokchopa, exactly the same. He was the youngest student, and who received the empowerment and teaching and transmission. He was not part of the important key figure in the beginning. Late, and then there was also some kind of a mismanagement in the inner circle, because Chumpunancho was very famous at that time. It was 1,000 years ago. And the Mokchopa, he witnessed that, and he saw that. He saw what was Dharma, and he saw what was not Dharma. And he left. He distanced himself, genuinely. And then he did retreat by himself. So it can go to that extent. So it doesn't mean that only with the conflict when we are doing a practice, but rather also, experiencing with the reality, with the actual circumstance, to protect oneself. And I think that is very important, and not to get lost in these kind of a circumstance. Okay, so I hope you understood what I'm trying to say. And then the subtle obstacles of the mind, of course, it's there, but it's not so much of a life-changing threat. So there can be subtle obstacles in your mind when you're doing retreat. Maybe your clarity of the mind is not there. Maybe your full dedication is not there. Maybe the undercurrent distraction is there, and you're unable to acknowledge or recognize it. You may have this kind of a subtle obstacles, but you will be able to overcome eventually if you have awareness of the very solid. If you're aware of the solid surrounding and the situation, you can be aware of this. You have a potential to have a awareness to the subtle state of mind. So when you take a refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, these are the things that you have to make a prayer for. I want to minimize all the obstacles of the humans and the spirits, and also health, and also from my own disturbing thoughts and the subtle obstacles, and please bless me so that I can overcome all these difficult challenges. So, yeah. And before you take the refuge, try to resonate to yourself about what are the 5 negative faults and what are the 5 positive faults before every practice. Before every practice, before you start the refuge, just start doing that a little bit. What are the 5 negative faults? What are the 5 positive faults? The 5 negative faults are the fixation, the justification of the suffering, and then attachment to one's life, and the fixation, and the self-importance, and then denial to the karmic existence, and then the 5 positives are the opposite of this, 5 things, right? So after, when you have some sort of a mental preparation, and after that, when you make a refuge prayer, and then at this moment, you think about all these 3 things, the 3 obstacles. Let me overcome the 3 obstacles, right? Kibu chunga da tumungi rinda laba kibu chunga tumungi mayimbe rinda laba sumle tambo che so mendo ndo 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 bashi ko ndo sama ko bashi mendo ndo kibu ndo tumungi rinda laba bashi kanju ne ka ne ko che chiwa ne ro ndo ndo and then Taranatha is saying that different method, different traditions has a different way of initiating themselves, such as some of the great masters or different method tend to go in a direction that, impermanence, start with the impermanence, or start with the renunciation of the samsara, or examining the cause of suffering, the reality of the suffering. And then there's some focusing, prioritizing the karma. And so different masters, different traditions tend to have a different way of starting things. But he is saying it doesn't matter, because at the end, it reaches to the same destination. It is the one conclusion. So it doesn't matter how you start. So now, in terms of in our method, in our current method, is the human life, preciousness of human life. First is the preciousness of human life. Second is the impermanence of life. Third is suffering of samsara. And the fourth is the karmic existence. Okay. And so you make a prayer to the refuge, to the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, and then after that, after this, and then you make a prostration from the bottom of your heart, physically if you can. And the reason why I like this very particular teaching is because it is very much focused into the method of Mahayana. And it is a Mahayana path. And I think it is very important for all of us, because all of us, we think that Tantrayana is something like a highway to the enlightenment, but we cannot reach the highway without some sort of foundation, So we need to have a foundation. Therefore, some sort of a foundation with the Mahayana principle, and then reaching to the Tantrayana as well. And these are very important things that we have to keep. So now going to the second session, right? So if you want to use this as a second session for yourself, then what you do is so that you make a prayer to the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, to all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and Dakinis, And then also making a bodhicitta prayers. So the preliminary prayer with offering mandalas, everything goes the same. Deje rangi lue dang, ne dang, long zhe dang. Yu zhou shi tam zhe le shi. And de da re to le milen de da xin de nie bra de de men de meton che la ko wa shi je ge nyang de me gua shi de. Ji do kan zhen bo chen gon de dom ni. Okay, so to remind ourselves that life is precious, life is precious, life is precious, to remind ourselves. For a short period of time, it's very important. Like an example, tila domni nyewa yeda tundro da lalo tsering hata ne lokta sanje ki tongba kuban de da mekom je. So there are the 5 unfortunate circumstances. The 8 unfortunate circumstances. So the 8 unfortunate circumstances are nyawa, the hell, being born in the hell realm. Yida means the hunger realm, the hunger ghost realm. Tundro, animal realm. Lalo means the ignorant realm. Tsering hadani means the gods and the goddess who live so long until their accumulation is finished, and then they realize and they panic, and then it's too late to do anything. So yeah, Lokta means the one who has the opposite view of the Lord Buddha's teaching, no matter the logical explanation. So Lokta does not mean that you have a different opinion. You can have a different opinion, but even the logic is presented, and then you are in denial of that thoroughly. Not just a genuine explanation, but even the logical explanation, scientific explanation is fully denied 100%. So that is called the opposite view. Lokta, and lokta means the one who has the opposite opinion, in complete denial. Lokta sanjiki tongba means that in a time that you are born without the era of the Buddha Shakyamuni, or without the being born in the time that there was no Buddha. Let's put it like this. Like an example, there's 1,000 Buddha, right? So there's 1,000 Buddha, and true. And then the most important is that there's some Buddhas who will, have a lot of activities and a lot of teachings. And then there's some Buddhas who will not even teach. And then there's a Buddhas that they do teach, but they will never teach Tantrayana. You understand? So right now, our Buddha Shakyamuni's era is very special and unique because he gave teaching, and not just teaching, but he gave teachings about Theravada, and then he gave teaching about the Mahayana, he gave teachings about Tantrayana, so therefore we are fortunate. And we are still in the era of the Buddha Shakyamuni, that is very much alive, the lineage, the blessings, and everything. So therefore we are fortunate by that reason. And then Lokta Sanji Kubwan Deda Mekomje. Kubwan Deda Mekomje means Kubwa means just completely ignorant person. It doesn't mean a disabled person, okay? And so there's a difference, because I think sometime with the translation, Kubwa means like a disabled. If you misunderstand, Kubwa means ignorant, just pure ignorant. So if you can be, because when you say a disabled, and that is have no potential to practice Dharma, that is incorrect, because there's a people who has a disabled with the leg, but they can still do the prayer, they can still read, and they are smarter than any other human being. They can do the work of 100 people. Like an example, you have the one who died in the Stephen Hawking, right? He cannot speak like us, but but he speaks for all of us, so like that. So you cannot say the disabled is an ignorant person. So you have to say ignorant person. So like there can be an individual who are completely ignorant, not necessarily a disabled. Like an example, if individual is a very, 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 very arrogant, it's ignorant. Doesn't mean disabled. So I think that's something we have to think about it, and we should not look down on other people. That's the thing. Whether it's about the race, whether it's a culture, whether it's their skin color, doesn't matter. Just to treat everybody respectfully as we can, and whether you're Buddhist or non-Buddhist really doesn't matter at that time. So these are the 8 circumstances that are unable to practice Dharma. So it's saying that if you are born in all this hell realm and animal realms and hungry ghost realm, and obviously it's no choice. Of course, the explanation will come later on about the hell, but I will explain to you right now so that you can understand what I'm trying to say. The reason why it is unfortunate. Like an example, in the hell realm, there's a different degree of hell realm. Just like in a pure land, like in heaven, not the pure land of Amitabha. Just like in heaven, there's a degree of heaven. So like when we think about the gods and the goddess, we think that everybody is happy and nobody is miserable. But in the reality, in this explanation in Lamrim, the one thing I like about it is that it says that some of them lives in the palace and have an entourage, and some of them have one single flute and nothing else. And they are not, welcome to the club. You understand what I mean? They're a little bit like outcasts, even in the heaven, so all they have is a one piece of flute and nothing else, and they're not really attractive, and they're not really attracting anybody else. They're in heaven, happier than human, but not really happy, not fully happy or center of attention like other gods. So there's a lot of comparison within the gods realm, just like within our society. So that's the upper level, let's say, But also due to that, they can't practice Dharma because the distraction is so immense and they can't practice Dharma. The hell realm, there's also a lot of degree. Like an example, Yangsu. Yangsu means killing again. Even the name, is so disappointing. Yangsu means killing again. Like an example, when they put your body lying down and then they cut your body again and again and again until you are completely passed out with the immense suffering. And then there's a little bit of gap in between, like maybe a 1-2 second. And then, then again, all of a sudden, you're reborn in exactly the same circumstance. You're laying down again, and again, your body is being sawed, by the tools. And then also there's the other hell realm where you see a beautiful house, beautiful house, and you run towards the house with absolutely no control. And then the moment you reach inside the house becomes a metal house and becomes a pure inferno, like pure fire. And then again, a few seconds later, you are reborn again. So now the lowest degree of the hell realm is there's almost no gap. So like in the hell realm, like in the beginning, there's a gap, the suffering is same, but there's a few second gap, between their, re-emerge, reborn, and then being, process of dying and being reborn. There's a few second of gap. But as the level goes down, the gaps goes shorter and shorter, the time goes longer and longer, and then on the bottom of the hell realm has absolutely no gap. It's just continuously suffering all the time, every time, with no gap. So you can understand why it is not possible. And the human realm is not that great, not that bad. And therefore we say it's fortunate also. That's one of the reasons we say it's fortunate. The second reason that we say that we are fortunate is because we are born in the era of the Buddha Shakyamuni, that we can learn Dharma, we can practice, there's a potential to be enlightened and not to go backward again and again. So when we say we are fortunate, does not mean that you are certified to be happy all the time. You are fortunate because it's not good as a heaven, it's not bad as hell, somewhere in the between. Therefore, you're fortunate. That's one of the reasons to call yourself you are fortunate. The second reason is the Buddha Shakyamuni, and so on. The teachings of the Buddha, era of the Shakyamuni. So, okay. So now I give you a brief explanation, a little bit like I'm spoiling the movie. The movie is about to release, and then I'm explaining what is about to come. I'm sorry about that. Like an example, in the heavens realm, like there comes Zukam Zumekam. Zukam Zumekam is there's a heaven that is very much attached to what they want to hear, what they want to sing, based on their wishful trees, and then fulfilling their desires and so on. There's that God and Goddess realm. And then there's also a God's realm that almost physically, almost non-existence. But they are crazy about, emptiness or some sort of dullness, a little bit like people who take a very strong substance, and they really go mad. Not necessarily they're going outside in the street naked screaming, but they just go mad in their own mind. So in some God's realm, the higher God's realm, the physicality is not so important, but rather their own consciousness, their own mind is just exploded, and almost like a craziness into a nothingness, complete chaos. Let's put it like this. So all these are vulnerable to go backward into the realm of suffering. Okay? Yeah. It's just a time difference. Like the God's lifespan is longer than the human's lifespan, but the lifespan in the hell is longer than the God's lifespan. And the lower the hell realm goes, the longer the lifespan goes within that. So everything is multiplied. Everything is multiplied by 7 times. 산지 맞으면 되는 감사해. 개범 산지 준비 시간에 최대로 사진 자총 최대로 사진 타고 라로 개범. And then we are very fortunate because we are not born in the ignorant land where there is no teachings of the Lord Buddha. So we are fortunate that we are in a place where there's the teachings of the Buddha, Lord Buddha. 최대로 사진 유저 타고 라로 개범 최대로 유저를 개장 로다 确认当练过时就当对别人反映能够送确实比较文明多不嘞大概 그래서 다른 내용들을 리뷰 또 양보단 돈니 이게 원보서 내가 말하는데 산제 전한테 주소 템버 내가 되는데 신진이는 저거 시작할 다시 미래도 그래서 okay, this is something I already explained about fortunate 그래서 you 최다르게 양도서 원본 공화서 발란시스로 시그서 타월로버도 맞제점 참여도 더블 로버도 내자 맞제점 and then like an example 시그서 타월로버도 맞제점 참여도 로버도 맞제점 네 담배 chuyển đổi 대외 교육 전도 도와랑이 들어와 참도 and then we are there's other few positive things but the most important positive things is we have not done something immense negativity to others and to oneself at least in this life so at the same time we have a sense of joyness a sense of joy when we practice the Lord Buddha's teaching and that is a good potential and that is a good quality 참도 도베랑게 좋아 참도 and in our era the Buddha has appeared and arrived and taught and the Dharma the teaching is still intact nowadays chola service one on the 최저번은 시행계 민족들은 원에 세계 여주소 따로 마음보는 최대에서 주로 가서 그 신종하고 연다. So like an example, us as a being Buddhist nowadays, people are very, people are generous, people are supportive when you are seen as a Buddhist. So it is not a bad time at all. Let's put it like this, simple. 대단히 메콘버제로 저버처럼 렌데 신들이가 감들이 저런 배그를 도님 준세 준비고는 양양섬. So therefore, by collecting all this circumstance and ideas in your mind and telling yourself it is really, 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 really fortunate, I'm really fortunate, like genuinely from the bottom of the heart. It's very important to think in that direction. So basically, you are trying to brainwash yourself. In our society, we brainwash ourselves in a different direction. So in the spirituality, we brainwash from the opposite direction. But you will still not lose your mind, so don't worry about that. You will be more clear than before in how you see your life and how you see the sufferings and so on. So at the end of these few thoughts that you've been thinking in your mind, and then at the end of the session, you make a dedication. And the session, you don't have to make it very long. You can do half an hour. You start with the refuge and the bodhicitta, and then thinking about these things in your mind again and again. And then at the end, you make a dedication from the bottom of the heart. So that's that. And the dedication doesn't have to be a text that is clearly written. The dedication be as simple as I dedicate all this positive thought that I have in my mind to all the sentient beings, to all the sentient beings, to all the sentient beings. And that is a dedication. And like an example, like the refuge to the Buddha, right? And I make a prayer to the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, and I'm not looking for the worldly things. I'm looking for the enlightenment path. Bless me, guide me, protect me. Bless me, guide me, protect me. Bless me, guide me, protect me. So that I can bring the Dharma into my life and to other people's life. And that can be a refuge and the bodhicitta as well. So it doesn't have to be based on the text, so you can just sit on the train, you can sit into the bus, you can, drive a car or, or flying, you can just think about this, you don't have to bring text in front of you. You can practice anywhere. Yeah. That's the second chapter. 양 원조단 제 online 신데 샘진은 연속으로 진도만 변나 사실은 조사 토리게로는 신도냐 변나 세메도 조사니 냐냐와는 사실전도 저자 예다 더 보여서부터 전조 진산이 장수천도 정말에 방마장 전조 카트로니 사실 뭐 반나 통지 첨부터 하다 민도와는 되는 그 수다 인전이 뭐 대례장 치리 민도와는 그래서 잠불링 민 양거수 추지면 수다좀 도 so basically it's saying the sentient beings, generally sentient beings, those who are in the hell and the suffering realm, and those who are in the heaven's realm, it's beyond comparison. And the amount of the sentient beings and the amount of human beings are beyond comparison. And the human beings, that are connected with the Dharma is so rare that you can count. The opposite of that you can't count. It's countless. Something like that. Zamaling 양거수 최주면 세다좀도 도데 다레 지장 최라 베거 양바다 베더레 좀 준세야 셈쟁기 나나 디글레체바니 제 마음대 탐에 기회레체바니 제상을 신도요 제외 나네자 밀리 패트데 소좀 소원 신도 괜베 대체 밀리냐가 가니 so it's saying 기회레체 so of course there's many people who practice dharma who practice accumulation of positivity. Gyewa means accumulation of positivity. There are many people who practice the accumulation of positivity, having loving kindness, compassion, trying to help others, trying to help our communities, whether it's our own people, whether it's the neighbors, whether it's the family members, trying to be there. So these are all positive action. These are not action without numbers. These are, positive, a genuine one. But even from that comparison from that to the practitioner, so the practitioner is even less than that. There's even less people who practice Dharma from that compared to that. Given knowledge, and then even those who practice, who can uphold the sense of discipline, is even rare. So therefore, to be born again as a human being is rare. Sultim means the right action, the right action, the discipline, So the discipline is not a mind with a cage, but rather a mind without cage, and that's how we should view the Buddha's discipline. It's free. It's not a military discipline, like an example, when we think about the word of discipline, we think about following the rules, rules of this and rules of that. Like you go to the office, you have the rules to follow. You join an army, you have the rules to follow. You become a husband, you become a wife, there's the rules to follow. So there's so many rules. But the Buddhist version of discipline is there is no rule, but rather having a deep understanding about life and the cycle of suffering. Based on that understanding, you make the rule. And how you make the rule? You make the rule based on the awareness of your mind. That's how you make the rule. You don't make a rule because somebody tells you to follow it and do it. You make the rule based on how many things you have counted by continuing your awareness of the one's mind. That is the rule. That is the Buddhist rule. Okay? Bebe, did I shin do never kind of so therefore we must cherish it because due to our previous accumulation, we are born as a human being, and not just that, meeting with the Dharma. If you have a difficult understanding of what is the discipline of the Buddhism, of what I just explained to you, it's like this one. If I just try to put our ordinary worldly life example, if you are happy, you are attractive. If you're unhappy, you are not attractive. If you have a peaceful mind, not necessarily a Buddhist human being, but rather who have some sort of a clear understanding, experience of life, you are attractive. But if you don't have an experience of life, or don't have some sort of clarity, no matter how much you try to look attractive, you are not. You are empty vase. So the discipline of the Buddhist discipline goes like this. So when we bring a good balance in this life, there is a chain reaction that appears in the next life. But in more long-term perspective, let's put it like this. Like some people when you meet them in the street or you see them in the street, they look very attractive with so many beautiful clothes and everything, so you think that, wow, this person is very attractive, and when they open their mouth, and then you don't want to listen anymore. It's like that a little bit. Some people, they're so attractive and they're very good in how they appear and everything, very successful, but when they open their mouth, you want to close your ear. So that's in our limited understanding, of when you have the qualities of mind, and there's this natural beauty that arises by itself. So, but the discipline, the chulchen, the right action, the right discipline, the awareness is similar to that, but much more broader. So that's the third cycle. There, so young under the Jama the Condition, Junjin and Rambachene, the direction they never lentic to be, come to it, tension the Shidruku and do. Kill and give Koro and Deva turns on the Sovereign Dune, young, and then the Brune, Koro letter way, and Janju, and Drumna, Tare, and the Janju, Deja, Tarege, Country. Yena, Milenda, she Matana, Tarvasanjitaji, Korandi, Koro and they get presence of Jijan, Dremission, Tare, Mili, Ningo, Lingo, and then now the fourth cycle is about trying to make your life meaningful as possible. So therefore, to lead a meaningful life, you need to have awareness in mind. It's very simple. You cannot make a meaningful, by copying other people's life. You make a meaningful life based on the awareness of the mind. So in this one it says, I want to lead a meaningful life because the so-called meaningful life is spiritual, the realization of the Buddhahood, and then I must not let any obstacles block me in between. I have this fortunate circumstance, and all the favorable circumstance is on my side, and I must utilize this in my progress. So therefore, I must really make the life meaningful. So it is very sad if we let go of this fortunate event. So if you don't utilize this meaning of life in a proper or genuine way, and there's no such meaningless than that. So it's a little bit like fooling yourself if you don't have a genuine approach. Like an example, you go to the treasure island and then you come back with the empty hand. Kaya mancheba demedu tadonde anchunchewa ngara desanji demedu son dani nima derin zambe demedu maldo cholam begyo and aya samba. So in the past, many of the fortunate event has been passed right through my fingertips. So therefore, I must utilize it for my full advantage to practice Dharma. From this moment. Yang sin di deki da chaji na le me tonyam na and jigden na ya jin to jin jigena tasha one dashi the development me do okay the dru okay the no the dru chegu and go dengi deki and jin sin di chawa ma cha the chegu chawa the go in the answer. Then if you find attraction in the ordinary life, and then you should try to understand and think that, you are leading to a much more important than this one singular life. So, the spiritual step, the first step is recognize and acknowledge that the life is precious and I must utilize in my full advantage. Then that's the fourth cycle. Now I will read one more cycle, and then I think we will do the question and answer. Nyeba nyudu chewa sambani dole zhongdang jurwa jurwa chinyeba yungi lwede tangin rowa ta pegun jikwa keba togide chöla negi nyeba checha che sombo ta ne kandu ne jang chewa le mande troso yang trojan chewa le mande satingen rowa mara zhongwa tamche jang chi ta zhik tamche jang chi dada onzo yoru tamche jang chewa le rowa Suyang me rangre tam zene nima teri inche rangda nyewa chicham chi parmata dayan chicham chi. So now the how to say the current chapter right now is about thinking about the death, the impermanence and the death itself. So the first thing is everything is not absent from the death. Nobody can escape death. And friends of a friend of a friend, there's, we know who have passed. Think about this, it says, just think like that. Everybody who have walked on this earth have passed. Everybody who have walked on this earth in the past, in the human history, they also have died. And then those who are also present in this very moment also bound to the death. So, So therefore, from this moment on, I must really make the time meaningful as possible. And I must tell you something here, because this sounds very depressing, everything, there's a birth, and then there's a death, and then your friend, and that's death, and family, and relatives, and cousin, everybody died, is bound to death, and it's so depressing. And I completely understand that, I acknowledge that. So therefore, you must practice first, again and again, and then to really reflect these things, and to truly in your heart, can come later. So don't try to pretend something you don't understand fully. And that's more harmful than not understanding it. So if you don't understand, if you don't want to understand temporarily, don't try to admit, don't try to accept. Then that's like lying to yourself. So if long as you can start with one of them, then it's good enough. You can start with maybe the life is very precious, right? Or you can start with the life is impermanent, or you can say the reality of the suffering and the samsara, or you can go to the idea of the karma. So you don't have to accept all four, keys. You can just accept one of them, and you just continue with your practice with a non-sectarian view, and then the rest of the three will come by itself, because at the end, it's all interrelated. So you don't have to push yourself, to pretend something that you did not understand fully. So just, take your time, but not too long. Not too long. Take your time, but not too long. Paramadan jayan chisam shichi. Tenam shidin dalan debe diyo babayan me. Chiri shiwa le wimindu. Gosu sela na. Dike jijan besa mele sebi. And then from moment to moment, we are, nearing to the death itself. Share son, deve nirson, dawarere son, hava nirson, logic, jig son, hava nirson. Deve na nirduchiwaye, dachu nyamsunanduna, darum gebalan, matu rim toba, joanyana, chidon de long, longe, che minimbaldo, penna. Lo tujulo shimbe tesuni, che majo yarde. Genani che le simbi to sebe, lo majo. Paye mami chini, nige, jenya, projege, cheba. Jodoya, yawasu, tene naso, ke wanda jobe, dembata, chende chewa chege, wanda cheja, cheran, yamin chebe, yere, nyawando, on tambanangi, pichinichi, bebe chebe to, tobe chebe, dage nyodo, tobena, cheton de la chejan, lelo tan, kasu, lelo tan, bagasu, showe, tabiye mindunyam sumbu, dedere, junjensame, ayangomba, che, nipongabao. The fifth cycle is basically, telling yourself the life is very impermanent, and it's very precious, and it's very fragile. And, whether you deny or whether you accept, the death is bound to come. So instead of just, escaping myself from the reality, I must be resilient and be courage to move on with the spiritual method and practice. And that's the fifth cycle. How long since it has been since we started? Okay, perfect time. So we have stopped here at the page 463. Okay, so to all my Dharma sisters and brothers, please keep this page number in mind. 463 is where we have stopped this time. And like I said before, this is a very beautiful teaching, all the very detailed guideline. And then at the end of the lumbering teaching, then there's the teachings about the nature of the mind as well. So I find that very helpful to all the beginners as well as the advanced practitioner. So, yeah. So I will take a few questions, not too much, because we have a, participant from mainland China and from Taiwan and Hong Kong and Korea as well. So I don't want to put too much delay on your time because it's already quite late in Asia.
Rinpoche, we have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
We have a question here in the Q&A. Should I say it? Yeah. So, can Rinpoche please say more about there being no middle ground or balance between samsara, worldly concerns, and the spiritual path? Rinpoche mentioned that even Buddha said that there is no way to join the two. I can't hear you, Rinpoche.
Where was that question?
It's in the QA section. It's like a Q&A section here.
Okay, I cannot. If you could
repeat it.
Yes, if you could repeat it.
Yeah. So, is there a middle ground between worldly concern and the spiritual path? Is there a way to join the two?
Well, I think in the beginning is a middle ground anyway. So you do not start with one path and being extreme. The extreme is not really something that is very much needed. Like I said before, the renunciation is a philosophy of life, not something that you think of, not something that you think of once or twice and then you abandon. It doesn't function like that. You have to carry on as a philosophy. And the definition of the right rules and the principle in your life, in the spirituality, is more to do with the continuity of the awareness of the mind itself. And that makes a greater outcome, a positive outcome, or at least a majority of the positive outcome can come from that sense of awareness, so that's more or less the middle ground. And then as you continue to practice, and then these ideas of I need to sacrifice this in order to practice Dharma, that weight tend to dissolve over time. So in the beginning, we have a lot of weight. I have this responsibility, I have that responsibility, I cannot abandon this, I cannot abandon that, because I need to find the middle ground. So you start with the middle ground. So at the end, when you look back after 10, 20 years, the things that you view as a sacrifice or some sort of heaviness tend to be no longer a heaviness as you continue to practice, because your perception of life, the perception of your own reality improves. The cloudy mind dissolves, the clarity, becomes more strengthened. And then this so-called, I need to sacrifice this because I need to practice Dharma, that idea doesn't even appear in your mind all the time. So that's that. It's definitely a middle ground, and then the continuation of the Dharma practice is the key. And that goes to people who finish the 3 years retreat. Like an example, they say, oh, I finished 3 years retreat, I don't need to practice anymore. But in the reality is that 3 years retreat was just an experiment to oneself. The real retreat is a life that goes on. So that also has a middle ground. That doesn't have extreme views.
We have another question.
Yep.
So what happens to beings that fall into the hell realms or the lower realms who cannot practice Dharma, how do they get out? Does an enlightened being help them out?
You can call 911. Yeah. No. I mean, the sentient beings, the one that is in the hell realm. Okay. The teaching goes like this. All the sentient beings, whatever the current circumstance may be, every sentient beings are bound to be enlightened, whether it's sentient being of this universe, or sentient being of the different universe, or sentient being of other planet universe, doesn't matter. Every sentient being is bound to be enlightened, no matter the circumstance. It's just a matter of time. But that matter of time is a very long time. So I think we give a little bit of chance to Mandarin Chinese speaker. If you can translate of your questions, and then I can answer. Kathy, if you can translate the Mandarin or Cantonese typing, and then I can give answer 1 or 2. Maybe Roger and Kathy can translate the Chinese language, and then I can read it in English. Okay. There's a person called Karma. Could you please translate his question? Kathy, if you could type it. And then, fine. Okay, what was the? Okay, there's one. Okay, so there's a one Chinese person who's asking a question. I always feel very sleepy when I listen to the teachings or do meditation. Could Rinpoche please give me some advice on how to overcome this? And also, okay, let's put it in my room. What should I do? Thanks. You can call the Ghostbuster, and they can vacuum your spirit. How to overcome this? I think what you can do is that you can do the yoga a little bit. You know, you can do some previous color, which is yoga, and it's free, it's there. You know, I have some different yoga, but then again, that requires a physical presence, you know, so that I can guide more precisely. But you should do some yoga, you know, based on the physical, breathing out, breathing in, having this mind, with the mind and the body combined, synchronizing together, meditative level, and that can be really helpful. And regarding you're saying that you have a spirit in your room, then just offer them some sort of like a stool, like a powder, where they mix together the different cloth, like a small plate. Then you burn them, make sure there's no fire all around. So just burn that and say, I offer this one to all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, including you as a spirit, and I wish you all the best for your journey, and I make a prayer for you to find the next life. And be compassionate. Don't be fearful. Be compassionate. Be generous with your prayers. It's absolutely harmless.
Rinpoche, there was also a Chinese attendant that asked how to control the breath.
How to control the breath, like in the sense of meditation? Is that what you're saying, you think?
Maybe it goes back to what you said at the beginning about the breath and the mind.
Okay. Yeah, when I say control the breath, I don't meant that controlling in a sense like a balloon, keeping the air. When I say control, what I'm trying to say is that I'm referring to the awareness of the mind combined together with the air breathing exercise, as well as keeping the air within, both of these two in good balance. So when you have these two in good balance, and then you have the awareness of the mind more spontaneously, so that's something we have to think about, because when I say controlling the air does not mean like forcing against your will. When I say controlling the air, means continuation of awareness of your air, and then also capable of keeping the air in your body part and doing yoga and synchronizing together and having a sense of awareness of the mind. So that is very much helpful, I believe. Okay. So what is the other question? There's one person asking a question about, is Lamrim text available in English? Yeah, I think there's already answer to you. Daniel, could you give some guideline for walking meditation? Many thanks. Dan from Brussels. I think walking meditation have to start with a sitting meditation first. If you don't have a sitting meditation, method or some sort of foundation or skills, you cannot do the different movement. Like an example, Taranatha's teaching about Vipassana and Shamatha. He said first method of training your mind is to breathe out 3 times from your nose, and along with it, absolute detachment from the desire of wanting to speak, wanting to talk, wanting to interact. None of that, just simply nothingness, but sense of knowing what you're doing, as you breathe out the 3rd time along with it. And then the first step is that when you breathe out, and breathe in, just simply witness the air when you're breathing out, witness the air when you're breathing in, and nothing more, nothing less. Simply that, not having an imagination of where the air went and how the air went and so on. If you have imagination about where the air went and how it went and where it should go and so on, and then your mind is distracted. Okay? So you have to train your mind based on the breath, not on the numbers, but based on the breath. That's number 1. Number 2 is that first you have to interact with the sound. Like an example, when you hear the river flowing, you do not imagine the river. You do not imagine where the water is coming from, where the water is landing to, or what is the speed, what is the current, but rather just simply listening to the sound itself not the imagination of where the sound is coming from. There's a difference. Like an example, people who listen to some kind of relaxation music, and that brings their mind in a very relaxing way that gives them the impression of relaxing, but at the same time, their mind is all over the place. It's not really the relaxation. It's more to do with imagination of relaxation. It's not truly the relaxation. So the truly relaxation is that when you hear the sound of the waterfall or the river, you just simply focus your mind on that with a very gentle attitude, nothing more than that, nothing less than that, simply the sound wave itself. And then slowly you interact, when you are walking around, when you see other people talking, and then you simply listen to the echo of the sound rather than the gossip of the words of what they're talking about. And then slowly after that, when you're interacting with other people, you are able to continue and maintain your awareness. And just like that, when you're walking, when you're eating, when you're sleeping, and having that awareness. So the walking, doing other physical engagement, meditation tend to start afterward, not before. So progress step by step is important. So like an example, visualizing a syllable. Nowadays when we say I'm Buddhist, and then we just jump directly into visualizing 100,000 of this and 100,000 of that, and deities and protectors and so on. But in that another method, and the Niguma method, is to visualize syllable, one syllable, two syllable, then you increase the numbers and the color and so on over the time. So that's it. Okay, so this is my last question, my last answer. Okay, my renunciation mind and the shamatha meditation is far from perfect. Doesn't mean obstacle for training my bodhicitta, or can I practice them simultaneously? Yes, of course, you can practice simultaneously. You can practice shamatha meditation and renunciation, and then you can practice the bodhicitta as well. You can practice all of that. You have to keep in mind, like an example, a monk vow is not something you receive once and then you never receive again. Monk vow is something that you receive it, and every 15 days you renew it. You receive again and again, you renew it. And like a bodhicitta vow, exactly the same, but much more intense. You do 3 times a day, 3 times a night, but at least once a day in our capacity. At least once a day, renewing the vow of bodhicitta. And sometimes we will lose our bodhicitta vow, but that's the whole point. We continue the bodhicitta vow as much as possible. Okay, so I think that's it for this time, and I want to say thank you to our mainland, audience, and also our European audience, and the North American and South American audience, and also from India as well. I want to say thank you to all your dharmic dedication, and hopefully we will do just like this next month. And I have to think about the date, because I will be traveling certain places in next month. So that's it. Okay. So I just want to say thank you to all our Shampakaju Zoom organizer, Nick, and all the translator here from Asia to Europe to South America, North America. I want to say thank you, for everybody's effort to be here, to help everybody, to translate my little experience. So that's it. And I want to say thank you, everybody, and have a good evening, and be safe, and Menitashi Dele, and when I do my 6-hour Mahakala prayer, and all of you are in my prayers at all times. Okay? And be safe. Thank you for your time, and see you soon again.
Okay.